Welcome, freaks and fiends.
Episode 3 of Talk with the Doctor. This week, all of us in the Horrorverse are preparing for the return of the Ghostface Killer. And with 6 movies currently in the franchise, I couldn't shortchange you with the usual top 5. This week, we'll bonus and review all 6. So let's get the projector rolling and see where each installment lands in the epic slasher series. For a long time, Scream 3 wore the crown as my least favourite entry in the franchise. Roman Bridger never really clicked for me as a killer. But after digging deeper for It's Alive Alive and actually sitting with his backstory, motivations and place in the larger Scream mythos, he grew on me. Context did a lot of heavy lifting there. Scream 6, on the other hand, is the rare Scream movie that moved in the opposite direction for me. I loved it on first watch. The energy was high, the setting change felt fresh, and the franchise confidence was through the roof. But the more you examine it, the more cracks start to show, and unfortunately, there are a lot of them. The biggest issue is consistency. Character arcs are introduced and then quietly abandoned. Tara's flirtation with dark impulses and violence feels like it's setting up something meaningful, possibly even a serial killer trajectory, but it never actually goes anywhere. It's hinted at, teased, then dropped like a plot thread that missed its connecting flight. That kind of narrative indecision is frustrating in a franchise that usually prides itself on structure and payoff. There are also plot holes you can't drive a Ghostface van through, if you're in full investigation mode, that is. Motivations stretch credibility, logistics fall apart under scrutiny, and the rules feel a little more flexible than usual. This is the one Scream film where thinking too hard actively reduces your enjoyment. That said, if you shut that part of your brain off and just let the movie wash over you, Scream 6 is a blast. It's loaded with Easter eggs, deep-cut references, and loving nods to the franchise's past. The New York setting gives the film scale, and that final act is visually striking, chaotic, and packed with some of the most aggressive stab-happy action the series has ever delivered. It's loud, bloody, and unapologetically fun. And honestly, this is still Scream. Even the weakest Scream movie is better than most slashers at their best. Scream 6 may stumble when examined closely, but to quote the possibly late Stu Macher, possibly not depending on how 7 goes, it's a Scream, baby, and still worth the watch. You can check it out now on Paramount+. Before, for a long time, I flat out loathed Scream 3. It felt like the franchise was parodying itself before anyone asked it to. The tonal whiplash from Scream 2 to this was brutal. Where the second film balanced satire and brutality, Scream 3 went lighter, goofier, and far more cartoonish. The violence was toned down, the humour was broader, and the fear factor took a noticeable hit. And then there's the reveal. The long-lost brother angle came out of absolutely nowhere. After 2 films drilling into the idea of copycat killers, media influence, and cycles of violence, suddenly we're dealing with secret siblings and Hollywood conspiracies. At the time, it felt lazy and forced, like the movie was desperately trying to one-up itself instead of staying true to its core themes. But context matters. This was the early internet era. Franchise canon wasn't dissected frame by frame by Reddit detectives yet. World building expectations were lower, continuity errors were forgiven, and long-term planning wasn't the obsession it is now. On top of that, Scream 3 was made in the shadow of Columbine, which reportedly caused major last-minute changes to the script. If the rumours are true, the original plan involved a Stu Macher-led cult of killer teens, but the school shooting suddenly made this story culturally radioactive. That pivot reshaped the entire film. Viewed through that lens, Scream 3 becomes more understandable. Roman Bridger, while initially underwhelming, gains depth when you examine his isolation, resentment, and need for control. He's not just another Ghostface, he's someone trying to rewrite his own narrative by orchestrating everyone else's. That idea actually fits the franchise more than it first appears. The Hollywood setting also adds an interesting meta layer, pulling the series fully into commentary on exploitation, fame, and manufactured trauma. It's messy, sure, but it's not thoughtless. Scream 3 is still uneven, still the softest entry tonally, but it's no longer the embarrassment I once thought it was. It's a product of its time, scarred by real-world tragedy and forced to adapt mid-flight. Flawed? Absolutely. Worthless? Not even close. You can watch Scream 3 now on Paramount+. Scream 2022, or Scream 5 if we're being honest and not pretending titles don't matter, is exactly what it needed to be. It's the Force Awakens of the franchise in the best possible sense. Familiar without being lazy, reverent without being trapped by nostalgia, and confident enough to hand the knife to the new generation. Coming back after an 11-year gap, this movie had an impossible job. It needed to welcome new audiences without alienating long-time fans, respect Wes Craven's legacy without imitating it, and prove the franchise still had something to say, and for the most part, it absolutely pulls it off. The performances across the board are strong. The new cast doesn't feel like disposable fodder, which is crucial in a Scream movie. They're grounded, likeable, and flawed in believable ways. The returning legacy characters are used sparingly and with purpose, never overshadowing the new blood, which reminds us exactly why this world matters. The motive is pure Scream, obsessive, self-aware, and deeply uncomfortable in how close it cuts to real fandom culture. It understands that the horror isn't just a knife, it's entitlement. That true line feels honest, timely, and perfectly in step with what the franchise has always skewered. The kills are another major upgrade. They're meaner, bloodier, and far less sanitized than some previous entries. This Ghostface doesn't play around, and the brutality feels intentional, a statement that this isn't a soft reboot and nobody is safe. The tension is sustained, not just spiked. What really earned Scream 2022 its place is how well it keeps you guessing. The mystery works. Red herrings are planted carefully, suspicion shifts naturally, and the final reveal doesn't feel obvious on first watch. That's not easy this deep into the franchise. Is it perfect? No. It leans heavily on familiarity, and some beats echo past films a little too closely. But as a re-entry point and a tonal reset, it succeeds beautifully. Scream 2022 proves that franchises didn't just survive the hiatus. It sharpened the knife while it was gone. You can watch Scream 5 now on Paramount+. For a long time, Scream 2 was my favourite entry in the franchise. A lot of that comes down to timing though. This was the one that landed right as I was really developing a taste for horror, the one that felt bigger, bolder, and more vicious than what had come before. It's also easily the Scream movie I've watched the most, which says a lot about how effective it is as a rewatchable slasher. The kills in Scream 2 are mean. There's no other way to put it. The movie wastes no time letting you know that nobody is safe. And it proves that point in the most brutal way possible. Randy's death. It's still a gut punch. It's sudden, cruel, and completely unceremonious, which makes it one of the franchise's most effective moments. Killing off the voice of the rules was a bold move, and the movie never quite recovers from that loss, intentionally so. Structurally, the film does a great job keeping you guessing. Suspicion shifts constantly. Red herrings are layered throughout. And the sequel's smart commentary about escalation feels sharp. The campus setting expands the world naturally, giving the film scale without losing the sense of vulnerability. That said, the reveal was always been the weak point for me. The killers themselves feel underwhelming once the masks come off. Both characters spend so much time flying under the radar that they don't have much to do outside of the murder. In hindsight, that subtlety becomes a problem. On rewatch, their identities feel obvious far earlier than they should, especially when you know what to look for. The motive works thematically, tying into grief, blame, and the ripple effect of violence, but the execution lacks the punch of the original. There's less emotional weight in the final confrontation, and it never quite matches the tension built earlier in the film. Still, Scream 2 earns its place. It's ambitious, aggressive, and unafraid to hurt the audience. Nostalgia plays a role here, sure, but even stripped of that, it remains a strong sequel that helped prove Scream wasn't a one-hit wonder. Flawed reveal aside, it's a slasher that still cuts deep. You can check out Scream 2 now, also on Paramount+. Scream 4 had an enormous gap to overcome. 11 years had passed since Scream 3, and like Scream 2022 later would, this film had to reintroduce audiences to Woodsboro while proving the franchise still mattered. The difference is that Scream 4 wasted absolutely no time carving out its own identity while staying fiercely loyal to the original's DNA. On release, the film wasn't critically embraced the way it should have been. And honestly, that's because Scream 4 arrived before people were ready for what it was saying. Its commentary on online fame, validation, and manufactured victimhood landed at a time when influencer culture was still in its infancy. Looking back now, the film feels eerily prophetic. What once seemed exaggerated now feels painfully accurate. And that's why Scream 4 has aged like fine wine. Tonally, it's vicious. This is one of the most relentless entries in the franchise. The gore is noticeably leveled up, in line with early 2010s horror trends, but it never feels gratuitous. The violence has purpose. This Ghostface is fast, aggressive, and unforgiving, giving the film an edge that some earlier entries softened. The balance between old and new is handled beautifully. Legacy characters aren't sidelined, but they're not treated as untouchable icons either. The new generation is front and center, and the movie makes it clear that this is a passing of the torch whether anyone likes it or not. The ending is where Scream 4 truly shines. Ghostface comes dangerously close to getting away with it, and there's a genuine sense that the franchise could have gone somewhere radically new. Some fans still argue that it should have. Letting that ending stick could have pushed Scream into bold, uncharted territories. Unfortunately, low box office numbers at the time kept Scream 4 isolated, preventing it from launching a new era back then. But in hindsight, it stands as one of the franchise's strongest entries. Smart, brutal, ahead of its time, and fearless in its commentary. Scream 4 didn't fail the audience just hadn't caught up yet. You can check out Scream 4 just like the rest on Paramount+. And number one with a bullet to the head, this is the movie that took a tired, blood-soaked genre out back, slapped it across the face, and dared it to evolve. Scream didn't just revive the slasher, it reprogrammed it. Self-aware without being smug, funny without defanging the horror, and brutal enough to remind audiences that jokes don't stop knives. What makes Scream untouchable is how confidently it balances its tones. It understands the rules of horror and then weaponizes them. Characters talk about slashers while actively bleeding in one. The meta-commentary never feels like a gimmick because it's baked into the DNA of the story. It's smart, but it's never soft. When it needs to hurt you, it does. The opening alone changed everything. That first scene didn't just shock audiences, it rewired expectations. It told viewers immediately that no one was safe, and the familiarity was a trap. That sequence launched 1,000 knockoffs and ignited the 90s slasher revival almost overnight. Everyone wanted to be Scream. Very few understood why it worked. The reveal remains iconic because it's earned. Billy Loomis and Stu Macher aren't just killers, they are a performance. Skeet Ulrich brings cold, manipulative menace, while Matthew Lillard delivers unhinged chaos that borders on operatic. Together, they create a dynamic that feels dangerous, unstable, and horrifyingly plausible. Their chemistry is lightning in a bottle, and no Ghostface duo has matched it since. The ending is perfection. Bloody, frantic, funny and messy in the best way. Characters stumble, panic, bleed, and make mistakes. Survival feels accidental rather than heroic. The realism grounds the madness and makes the violence hit harder. Scream also understands something crucial. Horror reflects its era. Media obsession, voyeurism, and violence as entertainment are all interrogated without lecturing. It trusts the audience to keep up. Nearly 3 decades later, it still can't be beat. The blueprint holds, the knife stays sharp, and the scream still echoes. You can watch the OG Scream now, just like the rest, on Paramount Plus. And that's it for this week, my fiends. Go have yourself a stabathon and let the theories roll for Scream 7. Is a TV to the head along with electrocution and some stab wounds really enough to kill a man? Or has our favourite Ghostface been pulling the strings like a demented puppet master all this time? We'll find out in just a few days. It's gonna be fun. If you like that, then check out our Patreon with subs only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial. That's at the Horrorverse Network, only on Patreon.